The stars looked different from the observation deck of the massive Craigian vessel. Catherine Wells stood alone, watching Earth shrink to a tiny blue dot against the blackness of space. She had trained for this moment her entire life. As Earth's lead ambassador to the first alien civilization humanity had ever encountered, the weight of her responsibility felt heavier than gravity itself. "Quite the view, isn't it, Ambassador?" said a voice behind her. Catherine turned to see Commander Peter Daniels, her military advisor and old friend from the academy days. His uniform was crisp, but his eyes looked tired. "It never gets old," she replied. "No matter how many times I see it in simulations, the real thing is humbling." The Star Sovereign was unlike anything humans had built, a city in space that housed over 50,000 Craigians. Its sleek, curved architecture seemed impossible, defying Earth's understanding of physics. They had been aboard for 3 days now, and Catherine still found herself getting lost in the massive corridors. "The High Commander has requested your presence in 1 hour," Peter said, handing her a datapad. "They've sent the agenda for today's meeting." Catherine scrolled through the document. More discussions about territory boundaries, technological exchange proposals, and cultural integration protocols. The words seemed friendly enough, but something about them made her uneasy. "Have you noticed how they always talk about integration instead of cooperation?" she asked. Peter nodded. "And how they keep asking about our military capabilities while sharing very little about their own." The first Craigian ship had appeared in Earth's orbit 6 months ago. The world had panicked at first. Movies had prepared humanity for invasion, not diplomacy. But the Craigians came with translators and gifts of technology. They spoke of a vast empire spanning hundreds of star systems and offered Earth a place within it. World leaders had argued about how to respond. Some wanted to embrace the opportunity, others counseled caution. In the end, they sent Catherine with a team of 20 diplomats, scientists, and military advisors to negotiate terms that would protect Earth's independence while opening the door to the stars. "We need to be careful today," Catherine said. The data Dr. Martinez analyzed from their cultural archives suggests the Craigians value strength above all else. They respect power, not kindness. "Which explains why they keep testing us," Peter replied. "Yesterday's tour of their weapons bay wasn't just to impress us. They were watching our reactions." Catherine's comm device buzzed. A message from Dr. Olivia Martinez. "Found something concerning. Need to talk before the meeting." "I have to go," Catherine told Peter. "Make sure the team is prepared for the meeting. And Peter, keep your eyes open." The science lab occupied a small section of the diplomatic quarters the Craigians had provided. Inside, Olivia hunched over screens filled with data streams. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and empty coffee cups littered her workspace. "What did you find?" Catherine asked. Olivia looked up, her expression grim. "I finally decoded more of their historical archives. The Craigians don't have allies, Catherine. They have subjects." She pulled up images on her screen. Alien. Worlds with strange skies and stranger landscapes. Cities that looked nothing like the Craigian architecture. And in each image, Craigian overseers stood watch as other species worked. "Every civilization they've encountered has ended up serving them," Olivia explained. "Some fought back, but none succeeded. The Craigians call it proper integration, we'd call it conquest." Catherine felt a chill run through her. "They never mentioned other species, because they don't see them as equals. Look at this document. It's a rating system. They classify species based on usefulness and threat level." Olivia pointed to a chart filled with strange symbols. "And they've already classified us. Where do we stand? Middle of the pack. They consider us physically weak but potentially useful for our creativity. And they think we're easy to control because of how much we value individual lives." Olivia paused. "They see compassion as a weakness to exploit, not a strength." Catherine's mind raced. If the Craigians saw Earth as just another world to conquer, the diplomatic mission was already compromised. They needed to warn Earth immediately. "Download everything you can," she told Olivia. "I'll find a way to send a secure message home." As she turned to leave, the lab door slid open. A Kragian security officer stood there, towering over them at nearly 7 feet tall. His scaled skin shimmered under the lights, and his 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Ambassador Wells," he said, his translator making his deep voice sound almost mechanical. "High Commander Vexar requests your immediate presence." "The meeting isn't for another 40 minutes, Catherine replied. "The agenda has changed." The Kragian's expression was unreadable, but something in his posture seemed tense. "Please follow me." Catherine caught Olivia's worried glance. "Continue. Your work, Doctor. I'll see what this is about." Instead of the usual meeting chamber, the security officer led Catherine to a part of the ship she hadn't seen before. The corridors grew narrower, the lighting dimmer. Finally, they arrived at a small room with a single large screen on the wall. Inside waited High Commander Vexar. Unlike most Kragians, who wore simple utilitarian garments, Vexar dressed in elaborate armor decorated with symbols of rank. His skin was darker than others of his kind, marked with the scars of past battles he wore proudly. "Ambassador," he said, not bothering with pleasantries, "we have discovered a serious breach of protocol." The screen on the wall flickered to life, showing security footage of the human shuttle docking bay. Catherine watched as a small figure emerged from a maintenance compartment in their shuttle, a young boy perhaps 12 years old with sandy blonde hair and a backpack. Catherine's heart stopped. She knew that face. Noah Bennett, her sister's son. "This unauthorized juvenile was found hiding in your vessel," Vexar said, his voice cold. "He has been detained." "There must be some mistake," Catherine said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "We had no knowledge." "Do not insult me with lies, Ambassador," Vexar interrupted. "Your species' attachment to its young is well documented. This is clearly an attempt at emotional manipulation, sending a child to appeal to what you perceive as our sympathy." "No, that's not," Catherine began, but Vexar raised a hand to silence her. "In the Kragian Empire, such deception is treated with the utmost severity." His 4 eyes fixed on her, unblinking. "The juvenile will be processed according to imperial law for unauthorized presence in restricted space. He's just a child who made a mistake," Catherine pleaded. "Let me speak with him. We can send him home immediately." "It is too late for that," Vexar said. "Captain Drazak has already begun the questioning. The boy will face the consequences of your negligence." On the screen, the image changed to show Noah sitting alone in a stark room, looking small and terrified. Catherine felt her diplomatic training crumble. "If any harm comes to him—" "You are in no position to make threats, Ambassador Wells," Vexar said. "The Kragian Empire has brought order to 1,000 worlds by maintaining absolute authority. Your planet will learn this lesson one way or another." Catherine realized in that moment that every suspicion had been correct. The Kragians had never intended an equal relationship. This wasn't first contact, it was the beginning of an invasion, and now her nephew's life hung in the balance. 3 days passed with no word about Noah. Catherine tried everything. Formal requests, appeals to Kragian law, even offers to take his place. The Kragians responded with silence. The rest of the human delegation was kept away from her, isolated. In their quarters, only Peter was allowed brief visits, bringing food and updates that grew more concerning by the hour. "They've moved us to a different part of the ship," he told her during his latest visit. "And they've taken our communication devices. We can't contact Earth." Catherine paced her small room. "What about the emergency beacon?" Peter nodded. "Dr. Martinez activated it before they separated us. If Earth received the signal, they know. Something's wrong." "And Noah?" Peter's expression told her everything before he spoke. "No news. But they're planning something. The guards are talking about a demonstration scheduled for tomorrow." Catherine felt sick. In the days since Noah's discovery, she had pieced together more about Kragian society. They ruled through fear, making examples of those who defied them, and they made sure everyone watched. "We need to find him," she said. "They're watching us too closely," Peter replied. "But I did learn where they're holding him. Section 42, detention level. It's heavily guarded." Catherine looked out the small viewport in her room. Stars streaked by as the massive ship moved through space. They were heading back toward Earth, but not, she feared, with peaceful intentions. They're going to use him to send a message, she said quietly, to show Earth what happens to those who don't follow their rules. The next morning, Catherine woke to the sound of her door sliding open. 2 Craigian guards entered, followed by Captain Drizak. Unlike other Craigians whose scales were blue-gray, Drizak's were a dark red, marked with black patterns that seemed to shift as he moved. "Ambassador Wells," he said, his translator making his voice sound almost pleasant. "Your presence is required in the broadcast chamber." "Where is my nephew?" Catherine demanded. Drizak's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "The human juvenile is being prepared. You will see him soon enough." The guards took her arms, leading her through corridors she hadn't seen before. They arrived at a large chamber filled with Craigian communication equipment. In the center stood a raised platform surrounded by recording devices. High Commander Vexar was already there, speaking with a group of Craigian officers. "Bring in the delegation," Vexar ordered when he saw Catherine. Minutes later, the rest of the human team was led into the room. Peter caught Catherine's eye, his expression grim. Dr. Martinez looked like she hadn't slept in days. The others showed varying degrees of fear and anger. "What is this about?" Catherine asked, addressing Vexar directly. "Education," Vexar replied simply. "Your world needs to understand its place in the order of things." A screen on the wall activated, showing Earth as seen from space. Then the image changed to cities around the world. New York, London, Beijing, Rio de Janeiro. People going about their daily lives unaware of what was happening millions of miles away. "We are now connected to your planet's communication systems," Vexar announced. "Every screen on Earth will display what happens here today." Catherine felt cold dread spreading through her body. "What are you planning?" The answer came when a side door opened and Noah was led in by 2 guards. The boy looked smaller than Catherine remembered, his face pale and his eyes red from crying. But when he saw her, he straightened his shoulders. "Aunt Catherine," he called out. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to see space." Catherine tried to move toward him, but the guards held her back. "It's okay, Noah. Everything's going to be okay." Vexar stepped onto the platform. "People of Earth," he began, his voice now broadcasting to billions of humans across the planet. "I am High Commander Vexar of the Craigian Empire. Your leaders have sent representatives to negotiate your world's entry into our dominion. However, they have shown disrespect to our laws and customs." The guards pushed Noah onto the platform beside Vexar. The boy stumbled but caught himself, standing as tall as his 12-year-old frame would allow. "This juvenile was sent aboard our vessel illegally," Vexar continued. "Such actions cannot be tolerated. In the Craigian Empire, all must learn their place. Today, you will learn yours." "That's a lie," Catherine shouted. "He's just a child who made a mistake. He wasn't sent by anyone." Captain Drizak stepped forward and struck her across the face, sending her to her knees. Silence. On the platform, Vexar continued as if nothing had happened. "This will serve as a lesson in consequence, one you will remember when we arrive to formalize Earth's integration into the Empire." "No." Catherine struggled against the guards. "He's innocent. Take me instead." Noah looked at her, then at the camera recording everything. Something changed in his expression, fear giving way to something else, something stronger. "By the authority of the Craigian Empire," Vexar declared, "this human is sentenced to death for the crime of unauthorized entry into Imperial space." The human delegation erupted in protest. Peter managed to break free from his guards and rush toward the platform, only to be struck down by Drizak's weapon. Dr. Martinez screamed. Other diplomats shouted in rage and horror. Through it all, Noah stood silent, watching the chaos. Then as Captain Drizak climbed onto the platform with a ceremonial weapon in hand, the boy spoke. "Wait," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "I want to say something." Vexar seemed amused by the request. "Very well. Final words are permitted." Noah turned to face the camera directly. For a moment it seemed as if he was looking into the eyes of everyone watching on Earth. "I'm not afraid," he said clearly. "Remember who we are, Earth." Catherine felt her heart breaking. Even now, facing death, her sister's son showed more courage than she had ever seen in anyone. Captain Drizak moved behind Noah, weapon raised. Catherine screamed, lunging forward only to be restrained by 3 guards. The cameras captured everything. Noah's final moment of defiance, the flash of Drizak's weapon, the boy's body falling to the platform floor, and then the silence. A silence that spread from the broadcast chamber across the vastness of space to every corner of Earth, where billions watched in horror. "Your representatives will be returned to you shortly," Vexar announced to the camera. "You have 30 days to prepare for our arrival and formal integration into the Empire. Any resistance will be met with similar consequences on a larger scale." The AT broadcast ended. The screens around the room went dark. The Kragian guards began removing the human delegation, who fought and screamed until stunned into submission. Catherine remained on her knees, staring at the platform where Noah's body lay. Captain Drizak approached her, bending down to speak. Privately, "Your people's weakness disgusts me," he said. "You value the life of one child over the future of your species." Catherine looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. But behind those tears was something the Kragian couldn't recognize. Something that would soon spread across Earth like wildfire. "You've made a mistake," she whispered. "You don't understand us at all." For 3 days, Earth mourned. Cities fell silent. Schools closed. Borders that had divided nations for centuries suddenly meant nothing in the face of a common grief. Noah Bennett became more than a name. His face appeared on buildings, in town, squares on the screens of people's homes. His last words, "Remember who we are, Earth," echoed across the planet. In Washington, D.C., world leaders gathered in an emergency session unlike any before. Old enemies sat side by side, united by shock and rage. The Kragian deadline, 30 days until their return, ticked away like a bomb. But on the 4th day, something changed. Admiral Eleanor Hayes stood before the assembled leaders in the underground command center. At 58, she had spent her life in military service, rising through the ranks with a reputation for both brilliance and compassion. Today, her normally calm face showed lines of exhaustion, but her eyes burned with determination. "They believe they've shown us our weakness," she said, her voice filling the silent room. "Instead, they have awakened something they cannot comprehend." Behind her, screens displayed images that few in the room had seen before. Secret shipyards hidden in Earth's orbit. Weapons systems that no nation had publicly acknowledged. Defense. Technologies that shouldn't have been possible with current science. Since first contact 6 months ago, a coalition of scientists, military strategists, and engineers from every major nation has been quietly preparing, Admiral Hayes continued. "We suspected the Kragians' true intentions from the beginning. We hoped we were wrong. We weren't." She nodded to a man standing nearby, Dr. Alan Shepard, head of the United Earth Defense Research Division. He stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. "The Kragians showed us only fragments of their technology, believing we could not understand or replicate it quickly," Dr. Shepard explained. "But they underestimated human innovation. We've made breakthroughs in shield technology that can withstand their energy weapons." On the main screen, footage played of a test facility where a massive energy blast, similar to Kragian weapons, hit an invisible barrier and dissipated. Lieutenant Gregory Jackson, weapons specialist, joined them at the front. His youth surprised many in the room. At 32, he was the youngest person ever to hold his position. "The Kragians rely on their technological superiority to subdue other species," he said. "They don't expect real resistance. Their ships are powerful but vulnerable if you know where to hit them. And thanks to the data our diplomatic team secretly gathered, we do." The mood in the room shifted. Shock and grief began transforming into something else, a grim resolve. "What you're suggesting," said the French president, "is that we can fight back." Admiral Hayes nodded. Not just fight back. Win. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Some voiced doubt, others cautious hope. The Russian leader stood. "The Kragians expect us to surrender," he said. "They think we are weak because we value life. They do not understand that this is actually our strength." The Chinese premier spoke next. "How do we proceed? They will be watching for conventional military preparation." Admiral Hayes smiled for the first time. "They are watching, but not carefully enough." She pressed a button, and the screens changed to show views from space. 50 warships moved out from behind Earth's moon where they had been hidden. Ships unlike anything Earth had publicly acknowledged building, sleek, deadly, and ready for battle. The NOAA Protocol, Admiral Hayes explained, a comprehensive military and diplomatic response we developed as a contingency plan for hostile first contact. The Kragians saw what we wanted them to see, our civilian space program, our public military. They never detected these. Dr. Olivia Chen appeared on one of the screens via video link. Her face showed the strain of her captivity aboard the Kragian vessel, but she had survived and escaped during the brief chaos when the human delegation was returned to Earth. "The Kragian scanning technology has a blind spot," she explained. "Using quantum stealth fields based on their own technology, we've kept our real defense force hidden. They have no idea what's waiting for them." A hushed silence fell over the room as the implications became clear. Earth had been preparing for this possibility all along. "We have 26 days, Admiral Hayes said. "In that time, we need to train the crews, finalize our battle plans, and prepare the public." The Brazilian president leaned forward. "How do we explain this to our people? Many will ask why we had these weapons and didn't use them to save the boy." The room grew quiet again. It was the question they all faced. Why hadn't they acted sooner? "Admiral," Hayes's voice softened, "because we weren't ready. Acting too soon would have meant the death of millions instead of one. It's a terrible truth we must carry." She paused, looking at each leader in turn. "But we're ready now." In the days that followed, Earth underwent a transformation unlike anything in human history. Ancient rivalries were set aside, resources pooled, military forces combined under a single command structure. The public reaction surprised even the leaders. Instead of panic, people showed a steely determination. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Scientists worked around the clock. Factory workers pulled double shifts to produce needed materials. Noah's image became a symbol, not just of grief, but of resolve. His final words appeared on the side of the lead warship, now named the UES Remembrance. At the Houston Space Center, Captain Samuel Rodriguez prepared his crew for their mission. At 35, he had been selected to lead the first strike team that would board the Kragian command ship. "They think they know us," he told his team during their final briefing. "They studied our history, our wars, our divisions. What they failed to understand is that humans are never more united, never more dangerous, than when protecting our children." In orbit, Admiral Hayes watched as the fleet made final preparations. Reports came in from around the world of defensive systems being activated, of populations moving to shelters, of armies positioning for potential ground defense. But the real battle would happen far from Earth. They would meet the Kragians at the edge of the solar system before they could get close enough to threaten the planet directly. "The Kragians believe they taught us a lesson about power," Admiral Hayes told her command staff aboard the flagship. "But they chose the wrong teachers, and they certainly chose the wrong student." A junior officer approached with new intelligence. "Admiral, we've detected the Kragian fleet entering the outer solar system. They're ahead of schedule, 53 ships including the Star Sovereign. So they're eager to begin our integration," Admiral Hayes said. She turned to face the massive viewport where Earth was visible as a small blue dot in the distance. She thought of Noah, of his courage in those final moments, facing death with more dignity than his executioners could understand. Admiral Hayes opened the fleet-wide communication channel. Every ship, every crew member would hear her words. "This is Admiral Hayes to all Earth forces. The enemy approaches. Today we defend not just our world, but everything it means to be human. Remember who we are. Across 50 ships, crews readied. For battle, the fleet moved silently toward their meeting point with the Kragians. Earth held its breath, ready to unleash its fury. The first battle between human and Kragian forces happened near the orbit of Neptune. The Kragians, confident in their superior technology, moved in standard formation with their largest vessel, the Star Sovereign, protected at the center. They did not expect resistance. They certainly did not expect Earthships to be waiting for them. Admiral Hayes watched from the bridge of the UES Remembrance as the Kragian fleet appeared on their sensors. All ships maintain stealth. Wait for my signal. 50 Earth vessels hung silently in space, their quantum stealth fields making them invisible to Kragian scanners. The crews waited, tense but ready. Enemy fleet is holding position, reported the sensor officer. They appear to be running final checks before proceeding toward Earth. Admiral Hayes nodded. They're probably preparing their integration speech. Let's introduce ourselves before they finish. She opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships disengage stealth on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Across the darkness of space, 50 warships suddenly appeared surrounding the Kragian fleet. On the Kragian command ship, High Commander Vexar received the alarming news. Impossible, he said as the reports came in. Their technology is primitive. They cannot have ships of this size. But the evidence was on every screen around him. Human vessels clearly built for war had encircled his fleet. His officers looked to him for orders, some showing signs of concern, an emotion rare among Kragians. They are bluffing, Vexar declared. Their ships may look impressive, but they cannot match our weapons. Prepare to fire. Back on the Remembrance, Admiral Hayes received a transmission from the Kragian ship. High Commander Vexar's face appeared on the main screen. This display is pointless, Vexar said. Your species had its chance for peaceful integration. Now you will learn what happens to those who defy the Empire. Admiral Hayes stood tall. We've already seen what happens. You showed us when you murdered a child to teach us fear. But humans do not respond to fear the way you think. She paused, looking directly at Vexar. We are not here to surrender. We are here to fight. The transmission ended. Seconds later, Kragian weapons fired, brilliant energy beams cutting across space toward the human ships. Shields holding, reported the defense officer as the Remembrance shook from the impact. Similar reports came in from across the fleet. Dr. Shepard's shield technology worked exactly as designed. Return fire, Admiral Hayes ordered. Target their weapon systems first. Earth's fleet responded with weapons of their own, not the crude missiles the Kragians expected, but precision energy weapons developed from studying Kragian technology. The first volley hit multiple Kragian ships, disabling weapons arrays and damaging engines. Vexar could not hide his shock as damage reports flooded in. How is this possible? He demanded. Their shields should not withstand our weapons. Captain Drizak, who had carried out Noah's execution, stood nearby. They have adapted our technology, he said, his voice betraying a hint of concern. The diplomatic mission, they must have gathered more data than we realized. Vexar turned on him with fury. You assured me they were primitive. You said their emotional attachment to the child proved their weakness. Launch fighters, Vexar ordered. Target their flagship. Hundreds of smaller Kragian vessels poured from the larger ships, swarming toward the human fleet. But Earth was prepared for this too. From the human ships came their own fighter craft, piloted by men and women who had trained endlessly for this moment. Among them flew Lieutenant Maria Alvarez, one of Earth's most skilled pilots. Falcon Squadron, form up, she called to her team. Remember the plan, hit and move. Don't let them track you. The space around Neptune became a chaotic battlefield, energy weapons flashing against the blackness. Kragian fighters were more heavily armed, but the human pilots were more creative, using Neptune's rings for cover and executing maneuvers the Kragians had never seen. On the Remembrance, Captain Samuel Rodriguez and his strike team prepared for their mission. 20 men and women in advanced space combat armor checked their weapons one final time. Our job is the most important, Rodriguez reminded them. While the fleet engages their ships, we board the Star Sovereign and rescue any surviving members of the diplomatic team. Then we find their command center and download their data. One of his team, Sergeant Lisa Chen, asked the question on everyone's mind. What about the ones responsible for Noah? Rodriguez's expression hardened. If we encounter them, we follow protocol. But if they resist... He didn't need to finish the thought. Admiral Hayes's voice came through their comms. Strike team, prepare. For launch. We've created an opening. The battle outside had shifted. 3 Craigian ships were already disabled, their weapons and engines destroyed, though the vessels remained intact. The Earth fleet had herded the remaining Craigian ships into a defensive formation around the Star Sovereign, exactly as planned. Now, ordered Admiral Hayes. From the underside of the Remembrance, a sleek boarding craft detached and accelerated toward the Craigian command ship. It was small enough to avoid most of their defenses, and its stealth technology made it nearly invisible until it was too late. The craft latched onto the hull of the Star Sovereign near a maintenance airlock identified from the plans Dr. Martinez had stolen. Using cutting tools designed to penetrate Craigian alloys, Rodriguez's team created their own entrance. We're in, Rodriguez reported as his team secured the immediate area. Proceeding to prisoner section. They moved through the massive, ship-like shadows, using stolen security codes to bypass locked doors. When they encountered Craigian guards, they used stun weapons, taking prisoners when possible, but leaving no Craigian in a position to sound an alarm. In the prisoner section, they found what they feared. Most of the diplomatic team had not survived. Craigian questioning. But in a cell at the end of a corridor, they found Ambassador Catherine Wells, badly injured but alive. Captain, she whispered as Rodriguez helped her sit up. You came. We all came, he assured her. Earth is fighting back. A weak smile crossed her face. Noah's message. You remembered. Everyone remembered, Rodriguez said as his medic treated her injuries. He changed everything. Their reunion was interrupted by the sound of heavy footsteps. Captain Drizak appeared at the cell door, weapon raised, with 4 guards behind him. Humans, he snarled. Always sentimental. Coming back for, you're weak? Rodriguez stood slowly, turning to face Noah's executioner. We come back for our people. Something you wouldn't understand. Drizak fired, but Rodriguez was faster. The battle was brief but intense. Rodriguez's team quickly dispatched the guards, but Drizak was a skilled fighter. He wounded 2 of Rodriguez's people before Rodriguez himself engaged him. I remember you, Drizak said as they fought. You were watching when I executed the child. I saw your face. And I remember you, Rodriguez replied, blocking a strike and landing one of his own. Everyone on Earth remembers you. Their fight moved through the corridor, neither giving ground. Rodriguez had youth and righteous anger on his side, but Drizak had centuries of combat experience. Then Drizak made a mistake. Your species is weak, he taunted, crying over one useless child. The words ignited something in Rodriguez. He attacked, with renewed fury, movements too fast for Drizak to counter. When it ended, Noah's executioner lay defeated. That child had a name, Rodriguez said. Noah Bennett. Remember it in whatever hell you believe in. With Catherine and other survivors secured, the team continued to their second objective, the Craigian Data Core. While they fought their way deeper into the ship outside, the battle turned decisively in Earth's favor. 6 months passed. The battle near Neptune was only the beginning of a war that spread across Craigian space. Earth's forces, led by Admiral Hayes, pushed deeper into enemy territory with each passing week. The Craigians, shocked by humanity's unexpected strength, struggled to contain what they had started. The most surprising development came 3 weeks into the conflict. A transmission reached Earth's fleet from a planet called Zilara, one of the worlds conquered by the Craigians, decades earlier. Its people had risen up against their overlords after seeing Earth's resistance. We thought we were alone, said the Zelaran leader during the first contact. For generations we believed no one could stand against the Empire. Then we saw your world fight back. Similar messages arrived from other subjugated planets. The Kragian Empire, it seemed, was built on fear. Fear that began to crumble when Earth showed that the mighty Kragians could be defeated. Admiral Hayes seized the opportunity. "We aren't just fighting for Earth anymore," she told the United Earth Council. "This is about freedom for all worlds under Kragian control." Alliances formed quickly. Species that had never met joined together, sharing knowledge and resources. Earth provided military leadership and battle plans, while other worlds offered information about Kragian weaknesses and supply routes. On the UES Remembrance, now the command center for the Allied forces, Catherine Wells had recovered enough from her injuries to serve as Earth's lead diplomat. The data Captain Rodriguez's team had stolen from the Star Sovereign proved invaluable. It contained information about every world in the Kragian Empire, including defense systems and potential rebellion hotspots. "High Commander Vexar is losing control," Catherine explained during a strategy meeting. "3 major Kragian colony worlds have already surrendered rather than face our combined forces. Their leadership is fracturing." Admiral Hayes studied the star map showing their progress. "Then it's time for the final push. We take the fight to their home world." The plan was daring. While the main fleet engaged Kragian defenses, a smaller force would penetrate to the planet's surface. Their goal? The Imperial Palace, where Vexar and the Kragian leadership had retreated. Captain Rodriguez would lead the ground team. "We don't need to destroy their world," he said during the briefing. "Just their ability and will to conquer others." The battle for the Kragian homeworld began at dawn, local time. Earth ships appeared from hyperspace alongside vessels from a dozen allied species. The Kragian home fleet responded immediately, but months of conflict had depleted their forces and shattered their confidence. On the palace grounds, High Commander Vexar received increasingly dire reports. Orbital defenses failing, Allied ships breaching the atmosphere, ground forces approaching the capital. "How has it come to this?" he asked, his 4 eyes darting between advisors who had no answers. They were primitive, weak, emotional. An explosion rocked the palace. Security feeds showed Rodriguez's team breaching the outer defenses. Among them fought warriors from worlds the Kragians had oppressed for generations. "Prepare my escape vessel," Vexar ordered. "There is nowhere to go, Commander," one of his advisors said quietly. Allied forces control all hyperspace routes from the system. For the first time in his long life, Vexar felt fear, the same fear he had instilled in others for centuries. The palace's massive doors exploded inward. Captain Rodriguez entered first, followed by soldiers from Earth and a half-dozen other worlds. Behind them came Ambassador Wells and Admiral Hayes. "High Commander Vexar," Catherine said, her voice steady as she faced her nephew's killer. "Your empire is finished." Vexar stood tall, still proud despite his defeat. "Kill me if you wish. Another will take my place. The Kragian Empire has stood for millennia." "We're not here to kill you," Admiral Hayes replied. "We're here to show you something." A communication array was set up in the throne room. With the press of a button, Admiral Hayes activated a transmission that broadcast across every world in what had been the Kragian Empire. The broadcast began with Noah Bennett's final moments, his courage, his words to Earth. Then it showed Kragian atrocities against a dozen species across hundreds of years. Finally, it displayed images of those same worlds now celebrating their freedom, former enemies standing together. The transmission reached billions of beings, including the Kragian population who had been kept ignorant of their empire's true nature. On their homeworld, citizens watched in shock as the truth of their leaders' actions was revealed. "Your own people are rising up," Catherine told Vexar as reports came in of Kragian civilian protests spreading through the capital. "They don't want to be feared anymore. They want to be respected." Rodriguez stepped forward. "You believed our compassion was weakness, that caring for a child made us vulnerable." He looked around at the diverse group of allies who had fought together. "But our compassion is why we didn't come alone. It's why we fought to free others, not just ourselves." Vexar had no response. For a being who had lived by domination for centuries, the concept was incomprehensible. Admiral Hayes presented the terms. The Craigian Empire would be dissolved. All subjugated worlds would be freed. A new galactic council would form where all species, including Craigians, would have equal representation. If you refuse, Hayes added, your people will decide your fate. They've seen the truth now. What do you think they'll choose? Facing rebellion from his own people and surrounded by the forces he had once mocked, Bexar had no choice but to accept. 1 year later, the first meeting of the Galactic Council convened in a newly constructed chamber on neutral territory. Representatives from 57 worlds, each with their own languages, cultures, and histories, gathered to begin building a different kind of future. Catherine Wells served as Earth's representative. Though her physical scars had healed, she carried the memory of Noah with her always. But now that memory drove creation rather than destruction. The central chamber of the council building was named Noah's Hall. At its entrance stood a statue of a human boy, his expression both innocent and determined. The plaque beneath it read simply, "Remember who we are." In her opening address to the council, Catherine spoke words that would be remembered for generations. We come together not because we are all the same, but because we recognize the value in our differences. Not because we are fearless, but because we understand that true courage means facing fear with compassion. And not because we are perfect, but because we believe in the possibility of becoming better. In the decades that followed, humanity became known throughout the galaxy, not just for the fury of their response to tyranny, but for their unwavering defense of the innocent across all species. The former Craigian Empire transformed into a coalition of free worlds, with Earth as a key member. Not as conquerors, but as liberators who reminded the galaxy what justice truly means. And on Earth, families told their children the story of Noah Bennett, who stood tall in the face of cruelty, and whose courage sparked a revolution that changed the stars themselves. His final words became more than a battle cry. They became a promise kept. Remember who we are.